The Airports Company South Africa are imposing fuel rationing on airlines who land at Cape Town International Airport, saying it just doesn't have enough jet fuel there to give the airlines all that they're used to. The problem seems to be that the Chevron refinery in Cape Town, which produces jet fuel, has been offline for planned maintenance. The ship that's carrying a major delivery of jet fuel has been delayed due to high seas. Rodger Foster is the CEO of the airline Airlink. Rodger, good afternoon to you. What impact is this having on your airline?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and thanks for accommodating me today, and good afternoon to the listeners. It has had an impact, and for the last day and a half already, we have been on rations, and we've had to tanker fuel from wherever we can. So from Johannesburg to Cape Town, for example, we've had to load as much fuel as we possibly can, and the consequence of that is that your payload, your revenue payload, becomes diminished, and the cost of carrying that fuel makes it even more exorbitant to operate the aircraft. We've done the same thing from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town. In fact, from everywhere in and out of Cape Town, we've been tankering fuel for the last few days. That has mitigated the situation to some extent, and very fortuitously, we have not yet had to cancel any flights, and we have also not yet had to divert any aeroplanes for the purposes of en route refueling. And I think that's been the efforts that we've put into the mitigation so far, so that we can ensure that none of our customers have had their itineraries disrupted, which could have other ramifications like missed connections. And also we operate our aircraft with skilled pilots, skilled crew, and they've been pushed to the limit in recent times because of the undercapacitation of the market, and we've been stretching them to the limit. And we're highly grateful, for that, and the fact that the pilots have always gone the extra mile to make sure that there's been no disruptions. But the consequence is, if we start diverting aircraft, then our pilots are going to run out of their duty period, their duty limitation, and that could have another adverse consequence. So we're doing the best we possibly can. We are mindful that there is a shipment that has docked. It wasn't intended to be offloaded in Cape Town. It is en route to somewhere else, but there is part of that shipment that can be deployed to Cape Town Airport, and our supplier is in negotiation at the moment with the owner of that consignment of fuel. They're negotiating the price. I believe they've actually reached a settlement on the price. It's more than we would normally pay, but also the quality of that fuel is being tested at the moment before it gets offloaded.
There's so many things to this. Firstly, what it's doing to you, it must be doing to all of your competitors. They'll also have to tanker fuel, right?
Absolutely. All airlines are tankering fuel, and it's been mandated by ACSA. They've published a notification to airmen, a NOTAM, stating that you will be on fuel rations forthwith. And that's where we are at the moment. We are on fuel rations, and we're doing the best we possibly can to avoid any diversions or cancellations.
Do you believe ACSA understands that this is really important? I mean, are there any other options, or is this just one of these impossible situations that's developed over time?
I think this is a perfect storm. The fact that the Chevron refinery, as you've stated, has shut down for maintenance, and given the fact that there is a shipment, a big shipment of fuel inbound to Cape Town, that it's been delayed because of stormy seas. So they've been running low on the fuel storage for quite some time, and they've known about this, and obviously everybody's been hoping that good ground could be made by the ship out at sea. But that hasn't been the case, and therefore we find ourselves now in a mini crisis. I must say hats off to ACSA at the operational level. They've worked with industry, they've communicated with us, and I'm sure all other airlines as well, and they're doing their utmost to ensure that there are no disruptions or flight cancellations. So we are working very carefully with ACSA.
Airlines are on an impossible space. I mean, your fuel costs are what? Twice what they were a year ago, 100% up. We've seen, of course, the closure of Comair, partially as a result of that, partially as a result of other things. I mean, the consequences of this, it could not be at a worse time for you as an industry. Of course, COVID on top of all of that.
Well, it never rains, but it pours. Isn't that true? And, the industry was in a decimated state before COVID. And, of course, we've seen COVID become a watershed, and we don't have the capacity in the market that was there pre-COVID. Yet the market is coming back in the post-COVID recovery era. We see it around about 65 to 70% of pre-COVID levels. And, of course, every now and then you are confronted by a hiatus of demand. We are in such a hiatus right now. And whereas the surviving airlines are in the process of ramping up capacity, ourselves included, that capacity can't be switched on overnight. So it takes time to introduce that capacity And I know that, obviously we are working on it, but I know too that the other airlines are also increasing their capacity so that there can be a better balance between demand and supply.
Rodger, could we see another airline go out of business as a result of this? I mean, and the impact of that. I mean, I don't need to tell you that airline tickets at the moment are unbelievable. People are just not even, people are driving from Joburg to Cape Town simply because they can't afford them. If we lose any more capacity, the consequences are dire.
I think that the supply-demand balance is the other way at the moment. There is an undersupply over demand. So I think people are driving because they can't buy tickets for any money. And typically the airline revenue optimization algorithm, which is quite a complicated issue, the later you leave it to buy your airfares and the later you leave it in the cycle of the load factor, as the load factor goes up when people have bought all the remaining tickets and there's only the last 10 percentile of the tickets left to buy, then you're going to pay a higher price for it. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. That's complicated and one doesn't really want to get into the detail here. But it's true, airfares are more expensive at the moment. But so too are input costs. You mentioned yourself that the price of fuel has gone up. It's more than double what it was a year ago. If you had to take the May on May, year-on-year price increase, it was 233%. At the moment, it's more than 100% more than it was same month, same day a year ago. And, that's an input cost that the airlines have to find a way to deal with. You can't absorb it and you certainly can't pass it on in the price. So I don't think it's that is causing the high price on its own. I think it's more related to supply and demand. And as I said, as you go up the demand tree, the higher the demand, literally the higher the price. And that's not because airlines are pushing the price up. It's just because you're buying tickets that are not deeply discounted. Whereas if you bought at the 10% lowest percentile, you'd be buying the cheapest tickets. Those are all gone, of course. And the only tickets that have been left for sale by the airlines have been the high-value tickets. And that's why things are so expensive. And certainly I can speak for ourselves. You take a look at all of the high-demand routes like Johannesburg, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Port Elizabeth, Johannesburg, Durban, and same with East London and George. All the tickets for this particular weekend have been sold out, more than a week in advance. So I think that that's part of the problem. There's an undercapacity at the moment to deal with these kinds of hiatus, and it'll take a bit of time to normalize that.
Rodger Foster, thank you, CEO of the airline Airlink. Really appreciate the time.